Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Autism Our Story podcast. Today, I have the opportunity to chat with Katja Piscitelli. Katja is a speech therapist, and actually, right now, she is training to be a spell to communicate practitioner. So, I am very excited to chat with her. I got so excited when I saw that she announced that on Instagram, where I follow her, and I was like, I need to have her on the show. It's so refreshing to see a speech therapist wanting to do spell to communicate. We're going to chat all about that today. Katja, I'm so excited to chat with you today. I'm going to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself, and we can start from there.
Awesome. Yeah. Hi. I'm excited to be here today. My name's Katja. I'm a speech therapist. I've been in the field for about 5 years now, and I specialize in supporting autistic children. That's been my focus for the entirety of my career. So, for the past 5 years, I've pretty much primarily supported autistic children and lots of minimally speaking autistic children, as well as Gestalt language processors. Those are kind of my two niches that often go hand in hand.
Yes. Yeah. So, the thing that got me excited to want to connect with you and bring you onto the show was when I've been following you for a little while, and I saw that you had posted that you were going to be doing the training to be a spell to communicate practitioner, and I thought that is amazing. We've been doing spell to communicate for 2 years now with our son, and so I was like, it was very exciting to see a speech therapist, deciding to do that. So I wanted to bring you on here to just to find out what made you, decide to take the training to be a spell to communicate practitioner. I know that, it's obvious that it's because you want to support the kids that you work with. But I'm just curious to know all the details of what made you choose that path.
Yeah, and I love to hear that you are using S2C, and it sounds like it's been a positive experience for you if you're excited to hear that another therapist is jumping on board. So that's great. I've heard so many great things about it, and the reason I am wanting to learn it is because as a speech therapist who specializes in supporting minimally or non-speaking kids, I find a lot of my kids do really well with more typical high-tech AAC devices, but I've had a handful of kids over the past 5 years that haven't really picked up on that, and I feel like need something more. And most of these kids, I assume, are experiencing more severe dyspraxia, more of this brain body disconnect. And
Yeah.
because of that, accessing AAC is hard, and they're really needing something that has more prompting and more of this mind body disconnect support in mind. And that's where I came across spelling, and it seems like the kids who are really great candidates for spelling are the kids that I see in my clinic that are really not making progress. So I would love to be able to connect the dots for those kids and give them the support that they need, which I often find I'm falling short with the current skill set that I have. So really excited to learn something new to add to my toolbox. And it's not something that is fully supported in the speech therapy community. So it's
Yeah.
been interesting to chat about online. I've been met mostly with excitement and
Yeah.
support, but definitely some people are still hesitant about it, which is also valid. But I'm
Yeah.
excited to be able to,
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm excited to learn more so I can share to bring more positive light to it and just more understanding about it. So
Yes. Absolutely. I just know you are inspiring a lot of other speech therapists, to be more open. I know as a speech therapist, you have that passion. You want to help these kids. And if there's something that you've seen that, it is working. And yeah, it's good to be open to those things. So yeah, that's something that made me want to bring you onto the show. And so yeah, I wanted to hear.
Thank you. A lot of what I do is really informed by what I hear from the autistic community and autistic adults, and
Mhm.
I can't ignore the voices that are urging us to see spelling as valid. And
Yeah.
um, there's so many non-speakers who never get access to communication because of this stigma. So I think we have
Mhm.
to be careful. Um, there definitely is potential for
Yeah.
mistreatment and abuse of this more heavily prompted communication system. But
Yes.
and I think the history of there being abuse with it is definitely real. So it's not something that we want to ignore or dismiss. But
Ignore.
there's also hundreds, if not thousands, of autistic people who are really benefiting from spelling. So I think both things can be true. And
Yes.
yeah, but yeah, I'm excited to learn more and um, really see what it's all about, and hopefully support some kids with acquiring communication in a different way.
Yes. Absolutely. I'm very excited for you for that and for the kids that
Thanks.
you're going to be working with. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to jump onto a different topic. Another way that you help kids that are non-speaking or minimally speaking. So we're talking about the Gestalt language processing, that
Yeah.
topic. So I am fairly new to the term, and I just found out that my son is a Gestalt language processor just by seeing reels on Instagram, really. And I'm just thankful for the internet because of that, because you're able to learn, things that you would never have thought about, your our non-speaking kids. And so um, I want you to talk about what is Gestalt language processing, and how do you, as a parent, or how can we tell that a child is a Gestalt language processor?
Yeah. I'm sure if you're a parent listening, many of you have had the same experience that you share, that you were on social media and came across this idea of Gestalt language processing and it described your child, because most autistic kids are Gestalt language processors. And it's a it's not a new concept in terms of the research that we have behind it, but it is a newer concept in the social media world. I believe the first account to really talk about Gestalt language was Meaningful Speech on Instagram, and they began, I believe, in 2021. I found them right away, and this 2021 was my second year of being a speech therapist. I found their information and it was such a light bulb moment for me. I had been supporting autistic children, but learning about Gestalt language was kind of the such an aha moment, and really the turning point for me in my career, and really feeling like I could truly support autistic children once I learned this information. So I'm sure
Yeah.
many parents have felt the same way. They discover Gestalt language and it's like this light bulb moment. But if you're not familiar, as I said, most autistic kids are Gestalt language processors, and it's just a different way of processing language. So um, Gestalt language processors learn language first through gestalts or scripts or pieces of delayed echolalia. So, if your child communicates with delayed echolalia as their primary form of communication, at least in the beginning stages of their language development, they are probably a Gestalt language processor. So,
Mhm.
this can look like a very typical scripting where a child is using maybe lines from their favorite TV show or video to communicate.
Mhm.
That's a very obvious sign that a child is a Gestalt processor, but
Okay.
even non-speaking kids can be Gestalt language processors. So it's not always super obvious,
Yeah.
but yes, most
Well,
autistic
yeah.
kids
So
process this way.
yeah. So for my son, he is non-speaking. Um,
Hmm.
he does say like apple or juice. That's all he says. So that I don't know if I can say he's minimally speaking, but that's all, he's able to just
Yeah.
share the few little things. So, anyways, um, from what you're saying, I feel like my son. I've not seen this with any other kids, but he scripts on his AAC device. So he is not is his echolalia is not through his through speech, he is through verbal, he is scripting on his iPad, and he writes his favorite Mickey Mouse phrases. And after finding out about, seeing more posts about Gestalt language processing, I realized, wait a minute, he's not just writing these randomly. He is actually communicating, because in certain times he would say that the phrase that is has something to do with what's happening around us. So yes, that's something that was like a light bulb moment for me. I was like, wait, he's communicating. He's trying to connect with us. He's not just, in his own little world here typing randomly and we're over here. He's actually saying something that has to do with what's happening around him.
Awesome. Yeah. Yes, the way that kids use media can be a big indicator of the way they're processing language. So, yeah, like you
Mhm.
said with your child, he's using scripts, or what we call it a gestalt, these lines from media on his device. I see lots of non-speaking kids use gestalts to communicate by replaying a portion of a video over and over. Oftentimes this is really intentionally communicative, and we have to cue into what the deeper meaning might be, but it's often there.
Yeah. So yeah, that's another thing that so I've been practicing since finding out, since that light bulb moment. It's like I've created this. I'm more in tune with my son. I feel like I'm able to tune into exactly what he's trying to tell me in that moment, and I just somehow know exactly what he's saying with that same phrase that he might have used in a different situation. I can kind of feel like, okay, he's saying this, or same phrase. I'm like, okay, right now he's saying this. So it's very interesting, and it's just been a very exciting ride. Just learning to tune in to listen to everything he is listening to, and his choice of music, and his favorite shows. It's very interesting to see that. So yeah.
It sounds like you're doing the kind of what we call detective work piece of supporting a Gestalt language processor. So just queuing into the shows they're watching, and doing the work to figure out what their gestalts are really expressing, whether or not they're saying them. So your child might be typing the gestalt or accessing it via video clip, where other kids who can speak might be saying the gestalt out loud, but oftentimes the gestalt or script that we're hearing has such a deeper meaning. For example, or I don't know if you have an example that your child uses, but I have an example of a gestalt in the moment. I was
Mhm.
hanging out with a child in the ball pit, and we were just relaxing, and very chill moment. And then another child came into the ball pit room and started making a mess and being really loud. And after a few minutes, my child, who was originally in the ball pit, looked at the other kid and said, "You splash it, you buy it." And he said it very intensely. And I didn't
Sternly.
know, yes, I didn't know where that Gestalt came from, but I could tell just based on how he said it that he was kind of likely meaning like, get out of here, or, you're overwhelming
Yeah.
me. And then I found the origin of the Gestalt, and it's from the movie Elemental. And
Okay.
in that point in the movie, there's a shopkeeper, and these two boys come into the shop and are like breaking items and making a mess, and the shopkeeper says, "You splash it, you
Mm-hmm.
buy it." So that Gestalt was encompassing that moment of the movie for him, where the shopkeeper's frustrated and he's essentially telling these guys to get out. So that's
Yeah.
exactly what he was trying to tell this other kid, and that's the coolest thing about Gestalts, is that they really communicate so much, and often
Yes.
so much deeper than we can see at surface
What
level. But they,
yours?
yeah, they
Mm-hmm.
really are so communicative. So we have to do
Absolutely.
that work to like tune into what is this child really
Yeah.
trying to share with us. But
Yeah, absolutely. I have an example. There's one that I posted, but so we do bedtime at 8, and there we start bedtime around 7:30 or 7:20, and by the time we're finally done with all 4 boys, it's 8 o'clock. They're in bed, and so my son kind of knew that, and we were in my room, and my husband was doing something, so we had not started bedtime yet, and he's on my bed and he's on his iPad typing. He typed, "Oh dear, look at the time." I was so glad that I caught it in the moment. I don't know, this mother's intuition thing is like sharpening lately, because I just knew right away what he was saying in that moment. I was like, "Hey buddy, are we late for bedtime?" He's like, he's smiling and he's so happy that I realized exactly what he was trying to say. I was like, is it past bedtime? Is it time for bedtime? And he's so giggly, and he was so excited to, just because I was able to, you know, acknowledge that that's exactly what he was trying to say to me, and that it was new for him, me actually tuning into what he's saying. And so he was very happy that day, and I was shocked that I actually figured it out so
mhm.
quick. Like, he just said, "Hey, look at the time." I was like, "Is it time for bedtime?" It's bedtime. And so, yeah, we were like 7 minutes late to starting bedtime. So it's like, he was like, "Mom, I have to be in bed at 8 o'clock." So that
Yeah.
was really, yeah. And there's been so much more since then, because I'm more in tune now. I'm looking for it and I'm ready. And I just am surprised by how much I'm able to just know lately. But it all starts with just the awareness of, they're not just saying or typing these things. It's not random. They're
Mhm.
communicating. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love that you describe that moment of connection that happens when you do get it right. It really is the best feeling, and leads to so much connection and trust. And that's
Mm-hmm.
that's why doing this detective work and just affirming what our kids are saying and scripting is the biggest piece of supporting them, because that that trust in the language that they're giving us is the foundation of everything. So I love that you're cueing into that. I wanted to give an example for maybe kids who are more minimally speaking, who don't have access to AAC. They might also be
Yeah.
using a Gestalt, and it might not be as obvious. So an example of that, I
Okay.
I have a child who, they can't coordinate longer phrases. They speak, but it's very minimal. So
Mm-hmm.
one of their Gestalts, it sounded like high knee. They would say high knee. Whenever they were upset or hurt, it seemed they were saying high knee.
Okay.
And we had no idea what that was, but we knew it was
Mm-hmm.
something because it came up a lot and they would say it in the same way every time. It seemed very intentional. then one day we were watching Cocomelon with this child, and we heard this song, and it goes, uh, ignore my singing, but it goes, honey, honey, owie, ow, make my boo-boo better
Oh.
now. That kind of,
Mhm.
that boo-boo song from Cocomelon. So we realized her hiney was her trying to sing that song, honey, honey. It was her
Okay. Oh, sweet.
saying honey. So
Honey. Yeah.
that little hiney was her attempting to produce this whole musical gestalt. So for her, when she said honey, she was picturing this Cocomelon scene where the dad gets hurt and
This
he needs a band-aid, and it was so communicative. But if we
oh,
didn't
yeah.
realize that she was, using scripts, we would have no idea. We would probably just brush it off as, a nonsense word or whatever.
Yeah.
But now we knew that she was using gestalts, and we had to really think deeper about what it is she was trying to communicate there. So sometimes your child very likely might be using gestalts, and it might not be super clear, in which case that detective
Yes.
work is a little trickier, but even more
Yeah.
necessary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. My son, I don't think this has to do with, I mean, it might have to do with Gestalt language processing. Anyways, he was doing numbers. He just kept typing the same number, identical, and it seemed very random. It seemed like he was just touching 7, 1, 8. I don't know. And so, but something told me record that or take a screenshot of that whole when he was done. It was like 20 numbers. And then he would type again that same exact number. I was like, what is this? Now I'm in detective mode. What is it trying to say to me? I was researching all day the next day, all day. And I couldn't stop. I could not rest until I found out what is he trying to tell me. Finally, something just was like, maybe this is something he loves. Look for his favorite shows. And so then I went on to his favorite show. It was Mickey Mouse. As soon as I went on Prime and you open it, you see the episodes that the seasons, I saw those numbers, but on like so it says, I don't know why it's so, that's something I don't understand, but it says like the first episode, volume 107, second episode, volume 42, third episode, volume 108, something like that. Anyways, he had memorized all the numbers to the volumes of those episodes. And so that was that number. I was like, whew, at least now I found it. So he had like 3 numbers and there's 3 seasons and he had memorized all those numbers. It's like,
Wow.
yeah, the detective work. I don't know how I did it. I was like, I'm glad I found out. At least it's not like he's trying to tell me I have to decode it. Maybe
Yes.
that's what I tried before. I was like, it doesn't mean anything. But yeah,
Yeah,
it
good for
was.
you. That was a tricky one for sure. And you talk
Mhm.
about how parents often are doing this detective work naturally, and yeah, I find even if parents don't know what Gestalt language processing is at all, or no one has like detailed specifically the
Mhm.
steps to support these kids, so many parents are doing it intuitively because
Yeah.
it really is. The supports we use are very intuitive and natural, but so many parents are just so wonderfully cued into their child's needs that they're doing a lot of this before we even really were
Even
able to
know what it
detail the
is.
supports. Yeah, when the
Mhm.
the research on echolalia came out, starting with Dr. Barry Prezant in the 80s, a lot of his research was just proving that echolalia was meaningful, and so much of the insights that he gathered were from parents who were sharing like, yes, duh, of course it is, like we know for sure that the echolalia our kids use is serving this purpose and that purpose, and very
Yes.
intentional. So parents have been cued into this for decades, and us therapists and the
Yeah.
research is finally
Yeah.
catching up. But
Yeah. I just thought of there's a girl from Love on the Spectrum that I follow, and I forget her name, but she's Disney princess lover,
Yes,
Disney
Abby.
lover, Abby.
A
Yes, and so there was one day her mom. They were kind of demonstrating it. I think she has. I'm not sure. I don't want to say, but she speaks in a way that only her mom has to decode, or sometimes, So, would you say that is also like Gestalt language processing, a form
yeah,
of it?
I don't know what you're referencing that she shared, but I
Um,
have seen her talk about Gestalt language processing,
yeah.
and she
Mm-hmm.
describes it more as connected to a strong episodic memory, which really is a huge piece of Gestalt language processing. It's often
Mm-hmm.
tied to this strong episodic memory that a lot of autistic people have,
Yeah.
which means that they kind of remember events as a whole, as kind of a whole
Mm.
schema, and the language that is attached to those events is often a gestalt. So maybe this
Okay.
one phrase is the phrase that they connect to their schema of a birthday party.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if the birthday party was Daniel Tiger themed, maybe they have a Daniel Tiger phrase that they use every time they think about a birthday party. And I think that's kind of
Okay.
what
Yeah.
I've seen Abby talk about is her really
Yeah.
strong episodic memory.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, they were in the car and she was just trying to explain. So Abby would say something and her mom would be like, she's trying to say this. I just love seeing that. It is really helpful. People might be skeptical about it. I don't know why you would be, but it these kids are actually communicating. There are adults that still communicate that way, and
Yeah.
they need to be validated. And um, that is one thing that I feel like the system has robbed us parents off. We don't get all the information. I wish I would have known this years ago, but I didn't. And then I found out through Instagram videos and
Mhm.
having to learn it all by myself. I just, yeah, I
Yes,
feel
you're
like,
definitely not alone in that. I mean, I wish that I had been taught about Gestalt language in school, and I was not, and every speech therapist should be. Yeah,
mhm,
and I've heard from so many parents of that maybe have older kids that have been felt like they wasted so much time with language therapy because they didn't understand Gestalt language and no one had ever brought it up to them. And
yeah,
luckily, it's really, really growing. And in the past 5 years, I've seen the knowledge of it go from me feeling like I was the only therapist who understood it to pretty much every speech therapist I come across at least has some information about it. So it is really, really exploded. And I hope that in the near future, every single parent of an autistic child will understand Gestalt language processing. We're
yeah.
getting there for sure.
Yes, I feel like it's just important to know. Sometimes it might not apply to your child. Some kids it doesn't apply to them, but it's good to
Yeah.
know because then if it does apply to your child, then you're ready. You have that knowledge and you're able to support your child and your child feels seen. Most of these kids, they just want to feel seen and heard. Um, they go through so much of their lives feeling invalidated and just feeling unseen and like ignored. So I'm really happy to see that that is changing and people are learning more about this and that kids are getting the support they need in that area.
Yeah, me too. It's a really exciting shift, and I've seen a lot. I mean, over the past few years of it gaining traction, I know there's thousands and thousands of families that have benefited from understanding the way their child communicates. So it's
Yeah.
very hopeful. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess another question I might ask you is how do you get them to a place where they're able to produce more speech or like be
Yeah.
able to learn language that way, support them in the way they learn language.
Many Gestalt language processors will get to the point where they're communicating just like their peers. So they're not relying on gestalts or scripts to communicate anymore. They can self
Mhm.
generate grammar. They can, you know, say truly whatever they want and do word plus word phrases to create their own thoughts, just like any child. But it does often take some tailored support to get there. So, our overarching goal in supporting Gestalt processors is to move them through the natural language acquisition stages. There's 6 stages, but four primary stages. So we can talk briefly about those because understanding
Yeah.
those helps to understand why we support Gestalt processors in the way we do. So
Hmm.
NLA, or natural language acquisition stage 1, is what we've been chatting about. These are the kids who use delayed echolalia to communicate. So they're using gestalts or scripts, these chunks of language, to communicate. So kids in stage 1, that's primarily how they're communicating, is using gestalts. We support
Okay.
them by affirming their language and doing the detective work like we've talked about. And then we
Okay.
support them by getting them more gestalts, more pretty much primarily phrase level language. The idea is
Okay.
that once we build their repertoire of gestalts, once they have enough to work with, they'll start mixing and matching them and breaking them down and moving on to stage 2.
Okay.
So in stage 2, they start to be a little more flexible with their gestalts. So if their original gestalt was, "It's so much fun," they might change it a little and say, it's so, well, that's a bad example, but it's so fun. They could say it's so scary, or it's
Okay.
so yucky. So they're
Okay.
taking that original gestalt and they're changing it up a little bit. It's not totally their own idea, but it's more flexible than before. So
Okay.
that's stage 2. And then once they mix and match and break down these gestalts very readily, they'll start to move to stage 3, where they isolate single words. And then they're at the point where they're operating more like other kids who are like at the toddler level language will, where they're seeing these single
Yeah.
words as building blocks and they can start to piece them together. So they might say
Okay.
mommy, mommy sock, mommy
Okay.
here. Um, then, once they experiment with that and isolate lots of single words, they'll start to move to stage 4. And that's where they start to really self generate grammar. Mommy, go up. Mommy, run. I run here. So it sounds like beginning level grammar like a toddler would make, no matter what their age is.
Hmm.
And then from there it just gets more and more complex. So we really have to start at that stage 1 level of getting them more gestalts, more chunks of language, affirming their echolalia, and really living in that space until they're ready to move beyond that. We can't force them into um, self-generated grammar. If we feed
Yeah.
single words, to a Gestalt processor who's in stage 1 or 2, they're not going to see them as building blocks for grammar, like they will
Okay.
once they get to stage 3. And that's where we see a lot of early Gestalt processors kind of get stuck in therapy, and we might feel like we're spinning
Okay.
our wheels, because
Yeah.
often in speech therapy, we're really, if we don't understand Gestalt processing, we're feeding them lots of single words. We're really affirming this single word input, which is great for many kids, but not for our
Yeah.
Gestalt processors. Our Gestalt processors don't see these single words as a building block, not until later. So we have to instead feed them a Gestalt. So, for example, instead of saying juice, I'm going to say I'm thirsty or time to
Okay.
drink. I'm going to feed them this whole phrase that they could
Hmm.
use, and if they immediately imitated it or imitated it later on with delayed echolalia, it's something that they could use to communicate and it would make sense for them. So I'm really
Yeah.
just kind of feeding them chunks of language in their words that they could pick up and add to their repertoire. And then once they have enough in their repertoire, they're kind of hopefully off to the races, moving through those natural language acquisition stages. But that's generally how we're supporting these kids. There's of course a lot more to it, but
Yeah. No, I love it. Yeah, I just remembered, like you said before, parents do things intuitively. I did a thing that you kind of explained there, because I didn't know all the stages. I just knew he's communicating with phrases. He must be a Gestalt language processor. Anyways, I taught him how to say "let's go," and it was because he know how he pulls. They'll just pull you and not say where they want to go, and it just gets. And I wanted him to be able to learn how to put a word to it. And so what I did was I just thought I should just teach him whenever he comes and pulls my hand, I would just say, "Let's go." And um, it was at a time because he doesn't always, how because of the apraxia, sometimes they might say it and it doesn't next time, or he might not even remember it. This one stuck. So yeah, so I did that like 3 times in that day, and he knew each time. After that, he was saying, "Let's go." So that was like, wow, okay. So I just kind of put two and two together from what you were just saying. I was like, I did that before. So that gives
yeah.
me like, I can do it more then, because that was the only one I did. And he still uses it till today. He'll come to me and be like, "Let's go." And I'll be like, "What do you want, buddy?" And he'll say, "Juice, please." And that's another one. He says please with everything. For a non-speaker, he is saying please. I was like, "You're doing great." He says please with everything. So I feel like he definitely is a Gestalt language processor. And I feel like parents that might be listening, will definitely feel like they can relate to what we're talking about here. And hopefully they're able to um, pick it up, and, they know what to do with it, and to be able to support their children, their child. Yeah.
Yeah, a
So
lot of it is intuitive, like we said, but yeah, if you're listening and you're wanting more support about how to support your Gestalt language processor, I share a lot about that on my Instagram page, and I have some parent handbooks about it and short courses and all the things. So, but I definitely try to give a lot of free resources.
yeah. Yes. So yeah, you can share where people can find you, that might need, want to follow you and learn more about Gestalt language processing, or other things that you share. Yeah. So yeah, please share where people can find you.
Yeah. So I'm boho speechy on everything, which is BOHO speech IE on Instagram and TikTok, which I don't really use. And I'm at bohospeechy.net is where you can find some of my paid resources like the courses and handbooks that I mentioned. But yeah, on
Mhm.
Instagram, lots of free ideas and supports there. Oh, and I
Thank you
also have a
so much.
podcast. I also have a
Oh
podcast
yeah, share
myself,
about that.
the Great
Hmm.
Language Partner podcast. So yeah, we just generally
Yes.
chat autism there. It's not all Gestalt language focused, but lots of
Yeah.
free info there as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I've learned so much just from following you. So, yeah, if you're listening, you're going to want to follow her, and you'll be able to gain insight on how to support your child in different ways. We have been just trying everything. We're doing spell to communicate, we do everything, just be able to make sure we're doing all we can to help our children. Even finding out on the Gestalt language processing has really helped us, at least know that he is communicating, know that
Yeah.
he's really in there. And now we're able to support him in that way. But I'm glad that you are also, doing all the things as well as a speech therapist, now training to be a spell to communicate practitioner, and
Yes.
wanting to support them too in that way. I'm so thankful that you're doing that. And I know that you're going to help so many families. It's a spectrum. So yeah, you never know what will help which child. And I'm just thankful and happy to see that you're covering everything that you can, and you're learning and you're adapting. And, I
Thank
just hope
you.
more speech therapists will be inspired by what you're doing, because you're doing an amazing job.
Thank you. Yeah, there's so many layers to supporting autistic kids. And like you said, everyone is so different. Each profile is so different. So I feel like I'm over the years peeling back more and more layers. At first I thought it was just speech, and then I realized I needed to learn about sensory processing, and then
Hmm.
dyspraxia and apraxia and AAC. And
Yeah.
over the years, I feel like every few months I'm peeling back a new layer, and there's always more to learn. But yeah, we're getting there.
That's amazing. Yeah. As parents too, I remember when I found out about sensory processing, I was like, this is
Hmm.
exciting. This is new, you know, like learning
Yeah.
that we don't only have five senses. What?
Hmm.
Anyways, yeah, so but it just feels good to see professionals also going on that journey with us. It's hard as parents, um, fighting to give resources and to find help, and learning things by ourselves, and educating ourselves. It's good to see. It's refreshing. It makes me feel happy to see a professional that is also on this journey with us and wanting to do all they can to support us, and our children. So yeah, thanks once again for what you're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thanks for having me.
I look forward to just, staying in touch and, supporting what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to the YouTube channel so you can get notified whenever I post a new episode. I'd love to hear what you thought about today's episode in the comments below. Until next time.